Hi there, Trailblazer owners. Today on your 2021 Chevrolet Trailblazer, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's diode wiring kit. This kit is available in several different combinations. With each kit, you're going to receive all the necessary diodes, wiring, and connections to get it installed on the vehicle. The only difference between the kits is going to be the cable where it connects from your vehicle to your motorhome. They come in different ones, whether you've got a 6-pole, 4-pole, 7-pole. We've got those combinations out there, and you can also get the kit with no cable if you're going to be reusing one of your old cables. Maybe you got a new vehicle and you're just installing the diodes on a new one, but you got the rest of your flat tow stuff. There's 5 main components you'll need when flat towing your vehicle behind your motorhome. You'll need your tow bar, which is the connection between your motorhome and your vehicle. You'll need your base plate, which is the connection point on your vehicle that your tow bar will attach to. You'll need your safety cables, which is a supplemental connection in addition to your tow bar. You'll also need your diode wiring, which will take the lighting signals from your motorhome and transfer them to the lights at the back of your vehicle so people will know your intentions when going down the road. And lastly, you'll need your supplemental braking system, which will apply the brakes in your vehicle when you hit them in your motorhome to help you come to a safe stop. Some additional components you'll want to consider is a high-low adapter. This is what we've got installed here, and this is only necessary if the height of your motorhome and your base plate differ more than 3 inches. We've got an 8-inch drop installed here in order to give us a difference of only 1.5 inches between the two, giving us a nice level tow bar here. Because if the angle is too extreme, what will happen is every time that you take off, you will either pull up or down on the suspension on your vehicle, and that can prematurely wear out those components. By having it be completely flat like this, we're just pulling it straight and we're not going to be affecting our suspension in any way. You will need to make sure that you got the additional pins so you can get these all attached. Another thing that you'll maybe want to consider is your safety cables. If they're coily cables, in most cases, you're usually will have the length that you'll need, but adding a high-low adapter does often make your straight cables not quite long enough, and we've got extensions here at each trailer if you were to need those as well to ensure your cables are long enough. Roadmaster's diode wiring kit will take the lighting signals from your motorhome and transfer those to the back of your vehicle here, so the lights will mimic at the back here, so people behind you will know your intentions when going down the road. Currently got the flashers on in my motorhome, and we can see that they are mimicked completely here at the back of our vehicle. Your diode wiring is going to give you your turn signals, which is both your left and right turn, your brake lights, as well as your tail lamps. So you have all the necessary lighting to ensure that you stay DOT compliant and legal in all states. Diode wiring is my personal favorite type of lighting kit to install on a flat tow setup, because once it's installed on the vehicle, you simply plug your connector in at the front when you hook up to your motorhome, and that's all the effort required of you. It is a little bit larger of an setup to get it installed the very first time, but from then on out, it's so much easier. Some other options are bulb and socket kits, which you would physically install a bulb inside of your taillight assembly rather than putting diodes in place and using the lights that are on the vehicle. That setup, however, really doesn't work too much in this modern day and age because many of our assemblies are LED and we just don't have space inside to add an additional bulb. Other options are magnetic lighting, in which you would set up on top of your vehicle and they would stick to the roof of the vehicle. This is one of the quickest ones because there's really no installation with it. You just simply set it up. However, the problem with this one that I don't like is that every time I want to flat tow, I got to get this bundle of wire out and these lights and set them up and get them run up to the front to connect into my motorhome. And the setup each time you want to flat tow is just, to me, more cumbersome. Plus, you also have to remember where are these lights, and every time I ever want to flat tow, where our diodes are installed in the vehicle and they're just there and ready for us. So this is why this is my personal favorite. Additionally, if you've got a permanent installed kit on here, that means we've got wires inside of our vehicle with our motorhome lighting signals, which are often needed to get a permanent mounted supplemental braking system installed. We're now here at the front of our vehicle where you can see how we've got it plugged into the motorhome. The most common setup is going to be a 6-pole at the front of your vehicle with a 7-pole at the back of your motorhome. We're currently using a 6 to 7-pole cable, which you can get the diode wiring kit in this combination, and we're using a coiled cable. A coiled cable is best when you have a tow bar that doesn't have any cable management on it, because the coil is going to allow it to stretch for the various lengths, but still allow it to condense and stay up off the pavement thanks to the coil. Some other options that you'll want to consider If you're not installing a supplemental braking system, and this is typically only for vehicles that are under a weight threshold, and you just need lighting signals, you can get it with a 4 round to 7, so that way you can have just the lighting signals on your vehicle over here. There is also one that comes with 4 flat, so if your motorhome just has 4 flat at the back, and this is the same if you don't need a supplemental braking system. This is if you just need lighting signals, this is a great option as well. These two are a bit less common though, because that 6-pole gives you the ability to add additional accessories, and it usually makes a supplemental braking system much easier to install if you're doing a permanent mount. It also comes available as an option with a straight cable. This is what I would recommend if you get a tow bar that has cable management underneath, because you can route the cable through those channels, and that will allow your wiring to stay with your tow bar. That's actually what I usually prefer, is to have a tow bar that has these channels. It just makes your installation neater. When you go to disconnect, all your wires stay with your tow bar. So that's really my preferred option, is to go with this and a tow bar that has it. But if you're going with a more entry-level one, these coiled ones do work great. And lastly, we have a hybrid cable where it's part coiled with straight, and this is typically used for a similar setup with channels underneath your tow bar, so you can run the straight section through it. But if you have things like high-low adapters and things like that that extend it away from your vehicle, a regular straight cable may not be long enough because of those additional accessories. So having the coiled end here will ensure that we've got enough length to be able to properly flat tow our vehicle and utilize that cable management. Before you begin your installation, the first step should be to determine whether or not your taillight assemblies are LED or incandescent. I've gone ahead and turned on the tail lights on this vehicle. This has LED tail lights, and you can see the LED section here where it's lit up. And I went ahead and turned on the turn signal as well, just because the turn signal on this vehicle is an incandescent, and you can see what an incandescent looks like. We're not actually going to be using the amber portion in our diode wiring. We're going to be making the brake light function as the turn signal. But if we look up here at our brake light, that's a bunch of little LED bulbs. And you can see what incandescent looks like. It's just a single, actually replaceable bulb. And we'll pull that bulb out so you can get a better look when we're behind the taillight assembly. Once you've determined whether or not you have incandescent or LED lights, ours are the LED ones we're going to be working on today, you can determine what the appropriate kit is. If you're working with incandescent, you'll want to use Roadmaster's Smart Diode kit for incandescent bulbs. If it's LED like we're using here, you'll want to use the regular diode kit. Now that we've identified the correct kit for us, we're going to be using the standard diodes because of our LED bulbs. We're going to remove both the passenger and driver side taillight assemblies. To do that, we're going to take a flat-bladed screwdriver here and pop the caps off that cover up our fasteners. You can see there's a little notch there. You can stick your blade in, give it a little twist, and pop that out. We'll do the same back here with the other one. And then we'll use a T15 Torx to remove the 2 fasteners. And they are a bit recessed, so you have to get in there to kind of get them out of there. Once we got both of those removed, we can get our assembly off by pushing it directly towards the rear. So I'm kind of coming in at the side here, right at the top. I'm going to give it kind of a good little jarring push. We don't want to push it too far because our wires are only so long. Just like that. And now we've got our assembly off. Now, there is no connector here to disconnect it. So we are going to have to work with our light just like this. We'll grab a pair of snips and we're going to cut off the little zip tie there, and then we're going to use a razor blade to remove the sheathing. And we'll also give you a sneak peek at that incandescent light we were talking about here on that turn signal bulb. Incandescent bulbs will be replaceable, LEDs won't be. So you can see this is a single incandescent bulb, and it's replaceable, it can be removed. The LED ones here, if you have an LED, you're not going to find bulbs inside, you're going to find a module assembly like that. If you had incandescents, all the bulbs would be just like this one. LEDs often have a mix, but the main thing is that the circuits we need are LED. So we'll get these cut off here with our razor blade. We're just going to take our razor blade and we're just going to run it down it. Be careful not to cut your wiring when you're doing this. We just want to remove the sheathing so we can access the wires. We're going to do this all the way back till we get almost to the grommet here at our light, because we really don't want to hook our diodes here in this section. We want to hook it back here further so that way they can hang down below our light and not be in the way when we go to reinstall it. Just be careful, this is going to be a little bit tedious and time consuming if you're taking your time and being careful. So here you can see we've got our wires exposed. The red and the green wire are the two wires that we're going to be focusing on. So we'll just separate out red and green. And since we have to work with this assembly here, what I found is easier is we're going to kind of just put this assembly, let it sit back where it was, and then bring our wires up like this. Because this actually comes out to be a pretty good spot to cut for our wires to sit well beneath our assembly. So we'll just pull up both of those. We're going to cut both of these because the red wire is our stop circuit and the green wire is our tail light circuit, and we're going to be making the red wire also function as our turn signals when we're hooked up to our motorhome. So we're just going to snip both of those just like that. Then we'll take a pair of strips and we're going to strip them back. On your diodes, you're going to have 3 blue spade terminals. We took 2 of those off of each one, and we're going to use those blue spade terminals and crimp them onto each ends of these wires. Just sliding on there. Make sure you get a good crimp on it. And then we're just going to repeat that for the 3 remaining wires. So now that we got all of our spade terminals attached, we need to get the wire that comes in our kit routed up behind these assemblies so we can get everything attached to those. We're going to be using a piece of airline tubing, but you could also use a metal coat hanger if you take it off. We're using it as a fish wire because this is a little bit more rigid, but it's flexible enough to where we can poke it down through here fairly easily and then pull it out the bottom. We can tape our wires to it and then use this to pull them back up. Because the wires are so flexible, it's really hard to get them to feed down or up. They just want to kind of bunch up in there. So something like this works out a lot better. So we've gone ahead and took the spool of wire that comes in our kit here. We took those 4 wires and just used some electrical tape to tape it to that pull wire that we passed down. Now that will allow us to easily get this bundle of wire routed up behind our assembly here. Because when we pull this out of our way, we can just pull this up, and there we have it. We've got our wires now behind our assembly. We can now take these 4 wires and we're going to separate them. So we're just taking our snips and we're just cutting right in between each of the wires, separating out all of those wire colors. Once you give it a little snip, they actually will peel back so you can get a little bit more room to work with them. And on the driver's side here, we need the yellow, the brown, and the white. On the passenger side, we only need the green, and we're going to be using a part of this white wire because the white wire is actually ground for our diodes, but we've got way more white wire than we need. It just needs to be grounded for the connector at the front. So we're going to be using some of this excess white wire that we've got in our assembly here to take the brown wire that we've got here. This is our taillight circuit. This needs to be present on both sides. So we'll use a small section of this white wire to jumper the brown circuit over to the passenger side. So since the green one has to go to the passenger side, we're going to peel back a pretty good little amount of it there. And then what I'll do is I'll come down here to our wires. We'll pull this back down just for a minute. We don't want to pull it all the way down. We just want to get that green wire pulled out of there. So now we've got just these 3 wires here. We're going to strip now each one of those wires. Now that we've got each one stripped, we're going to take and put spade terminals on them. The yellow one is going to get one of the blue spade terminals off of your diodes. So we're just going to slide that on there and crimp it. And then on your diodes, you're going to have one that's different than all the rest. It's going to be a slightly larger yellow spade terminal. The reason why they give you one like that is because you have to jumper your taillight signal over to the passenger side. So we're going to take the white and the brown wire here, because the white is going to be our jumper. We're going to twist these two wires together here. They're going to cooperate. And once we get them twisted together, we will use the yellow spade terminal, because it has a larger diameter opening in it, to allow it to accommodate two wires. And we'll crimp that onto there. At this point now, we can go ahead and attach the diodes over here on the driver's side. So we've got that wire there. We've got the ones that we cut. Our diodes have in and out written on them. Out is always going to go towards your taillight assembly. So we're going to plug in the green wire here to where it says out. And then we're going to take the green wire on the other end here on the vehicle side, and that's going to plug in to one of the two in slots. I'm going to go ahead and grab our other diode. We're going to do the same thing. So taillight side on the red wire is our out. Vehicle side, red wire, is in. So now we need to get our motorhome wires attached. This is what's going to come from the motorhome. We're running those now. Our yellow wire is our stop and turn circuit. On our vehicle, the red wire is the stop and turn circuit. So we're going to be placing this on that extra in slot on the diode with the red wire. And just like that. Our green wire is our tail light circuit. You may need to separate them a little bit further if necessary. And we're just going to plug this to the in on the diode that has the green wire. At this point now, to keep our assemblies from bouncing around and clinking into each other, we're going to peel off the adhesive backing. We're going to stick the two diodes together, and this way we can position those down below the assembly when we're reinstalling it. So those will just kind of hang out down there. We can line our light back up. You got a few little tangs and tabs you got to line up, and then just give it a little bit of a push and it'll snap into place there. We'll now take the green wire, we're going to route that across to the passenger side, and we're going to be using a section of that white wire. So what I like to do to determine how much of that white wire we're going to grab the green wire here, and we're just going to stretch this green wire over towards the passenger side. It needs to go all the way across, and it needs to come up behind the taillight assembly to where we can connect it to our diode. So we're just kind of mocking it up here real quick. And this looks like this should be plenty of length to route over and route up to connect to our assemblies. So to determine how much white wire we want to use, we're actually just going to take the green wire here, we're going to fold it back down along our wire harness and just follow this green wire down until the green wire stops, which looks to be right about here. We're going to now cut just the white wire, cutting this one in half. Once you get that cut there, you typically can peel back the white. If you can't peel it back, that's okay. You can just do like we did previously and go between the wires and just give it a little tiny snip. That'll start it for you. Peel it back. We don't need to peel back a bunch, just a little bit. But now we know that we need the white wire that's going towards our taillight assembly here. So let's just straighten this back out. This is what's going towards the taillight assembly. We're going to peel this all the way back till we hit our green wire right here. And then we're going to route just these two wires across to the other side. The white wire that's still remaining here, you can just leave it pulled back right about this far. This is going to be attached to the bottom of the frame at some point, but we can do that at a later step. Right now we're going to route these over to the other side and get those behind the taillight assemblies. We're going to be using the fish wire pull technique to get those up, just like we did on the driver's side here. We're now on the passenger side. Of course, you got to remove the taillight assembly over here. The green and white wire, we routed over, and then we use that fish wire trick that we showed you on the driver's side to get it pulled up here. After doing so, we stripped back the green and the white wire. Those got blue spade terminals. And our taillight assembly here is the same colored wires behind it, the green and the red. So of course we cut those and we put blue spade terminals on all of those. The out goes towards our taillight assembly, same thing on this side. The in is going to be the wires from the vehicle as well as the ones we ran. The red circuit is our stop turn, so the green wire is going to plug into that diode because that's the passenger side stop turn circuit. And this white wire here is our jumper for our tail lights from the driver's side over there, which is going to be the green circuit on the vehicle. We're now underneath so you can see how I routed the wire across from one side to the other. Here's our wires that came down from our driver's side taillight assembly. We stay on the other side of our piece of our frame where it hangs down here. So we want to avoid anything excessively hot like our exhaust and any moving components like our suspension whenever we're routing our wires. If you can find factory wires, that's usually the best way to go, is just follow those factory wires. There aren't any here, so we just stay on the other side of this. We just kind of wrapped it around the attachments for the bumper here. Made sure to stay on the opposite side of our exhaust system. And then once we got to this side, we used that pull wire trick to just pull it up there. Now that we've got all of our connections made, we're going to go ahead and continue routing this wire up to the front of the vehicle. Since we're going to be installing a supplemental braking system that needs to tap into our diodes, we're going to route it up into our engine compartment. This is where I recommend most people do, just in case you don't know what kind of braking system you've got. You know that the wires will be in the engine compartment. If you need to tap to them, you can, because not all the braking systems require that. So I'm going to route it now, and then I'll show you the path I took to get it there. Also keep in mind, we got this little white wire here, so you're going to be routing yours along with us. We're going to be connecting this to ground underneath the vehicle here at some point, so don't forget about that guy. So here we are underneath. We're going to show you the path we took to get our wire forward. We did first take the rest of our wires here that we're routing forward. I did go around one of the wire harnesses here in the back. That helps keep it up away from our exhaust here. From there, we just follow along the frame, up over our suspension, and zip tie it to the factory wiring harness here. We're going to take a quick pit stop here because that's where that white wire is that we have left on here, that little piece we stripped out. We're going to attach this to the frame right here. So we can go ahead and grab our strippers, and we're going to strip off some of that white wire. And then in your kit, you're going to have a small ring terminal. That's what we're going to attach to it this time. No spade terminals down here, ring terminals. So just twist our wire, grab our crimpers, and it's a little tiny ring terminal because we just need to get a ground signal. It can properly send our lighting signals from our motorhome. We'll just slide our wire into our small ring terminal, and then we'll crimp it down, and then we can attach it to the frame up there using the provided self-tapping screw. Just going to slide that through. We'll use an 8mm socket to run the self-tapping screw in. And we're just going to go right here to the bottom of the frame and run it right into there. And just check your wire. Make sure it's in there snug. You don't want it to be able to twist still. So now that we've got our ground wire connected here, we can just continue on our routing. From the zip tie, we go around our fuel tank. We do go above the lines there. And then we just come right around all those lines here, and then there's some little tabs here. We zip tie it to those tabs going forward. Just kind of keep following along next to our lines. And then we just zip tied it to the line bracket here. And we used our fish wire trick just in the back, just like we did back there up here, to pull our wire up. And we did try to stay near our lines here to the left of our steering rack where it comes down there. Our wire just pulls up right over here. This is kind of where we fed it down. And we zip tied it to the factory harness right here to keep it from falling down. And then just go around our fuse box there and our battery. We keep going forward through the opening, and then we bring it down here along the front. Now you might be wondering, hey, you don't have the front of your car on. That's because we just got done installing our base plate, and that's the perfect time to do the rest of your flat tow setup, which includes your diode wiring and your supplemental braking system. So we're going to be routing all the wires for our braking system as well while we've got the car in this state. So now that we've got our wires routed up here to the front, At this point, we'll separate out our 4 wires and connect them to our 6-pole connector. Now, this wiring kit can come in multiple different combinations depending on the type of connection that your motorhome has and what you want the functionalities to do. If you just need lighting signals to function on your car, you can actually just use a 4-way. It's going to be the same process of routing this wire, it's just going to have a 4 flat on the end. The most common though is a 6-way connector, and we do that because we're going to be adding additional accessories, and if you want to add additional accessories and be able to easily plug it all in with one cable, that's why you go from that 4-way up to the 6-way connector. So that's what we're going to be using. The other kits, they all come with the 6-way connector, but they do come with different cables depending on the type of tow bar that you've got. We'll be covering those cables when we go to hook it up on the vehicle. At this point now, we're going to leave our wiring here because we don't want to install our connector now until we get our fascia back in place. Otherwise, we'd have to cut out a large hole for that connector. So once we've got the fascia back installed, we'll pull this wire through and then I'll show you how to get everything attached. So now that we've got our fascia reinstalled, after running our wire here to the front, we can go ahead and get our connector mounted up. Now this kit does come in multiple configurations. You can either get it with a 4-pole flat or with a 6-pole connector. If you have a 4-pole flat, those would have actually already been on here on your wiring. If you have the 6-pole one, the 4-pole flats are cut off and it's just smooth wires like this. If you're using the 4-pole, you don't actually need to do anything. You can just mount it up to the front here to a bracket or with a zip tie, and that'll just plug into your motorhome's 4-pole. But if you have a 6-pole, we'll need to get this wire attached to the 6-pole connector that comes included with it. So we'll take our 6-pole connector here. We're going to remove the rubber boot from the back of the connector there. We're just going to slide this over our wiring and get that in place so that way it's ready for us once we make our connection. Next, we're going to take some of this excess off. We don't need all of this excess, but I do recommend leaving some excess, so if you ever want to add accessories or anything like that in the future, you can pull this off and do so. So we're going to trim it off right about here, that way we've got some room to work with, a little bit of extra slack like that. So we're just going to trim off what we don't need. Once we trim off what we don't need, we're going to take our cutters here and we're going to go in between each one of these wires and separate them out, similar like how we did at the back of the vehicle. After each one of these has been separated, we'll strip them and we can start installing them into our connector. So now we'll look at the back side of our connector. This is where all of our wires are going to poke in, and we're going to use a Phillips or a small flathead screwdriver to loosen these up, and then we'll tighten them down to get our wires in. There are some small labels written on next to each one of these. So we're going to pull the ones that we want, and we're going to start with ground, which is the white wire that we've run. Ground is labeled as GD on the connector, so we'll unscrew that. And we're just going to work our way around now. The next one next to that is LT, which is left turn. That's going to be our yellow wire, so we'll unscrew that one. Next is RT, that's right turn. That's going to be our green wire. Next to that is S. This circuit is an additional circuit we won't be using, but it's great for accessories. A lot of times it's used for monitor lights and things like that. But we're going to skip it and go on to TM. That's our next one, which is our tail light circuit, which is our brown wire. So we can go ahead and unscrew that one. And the last one is our middle circuit, which we're also not going to use. That's typically used for a charge line circuit to charge your battery. So now we've got all those separated. We're just going to go right back in the order that we started unscrewing them, starting with ground, poking them in the respective outlet there, and then tightening it back down. When you're poking these in there, make sure you do get all the strands in there. Any loose strands could potentially short to another circuit and cause malfunctions or unexpected operation of your lights. Once we've got our last circuit in there, before we slide our dust boot on and get this mounted onto our base plate, we want to take a couple precautions to help ensure that all the hard work that we've done today isn't going to get ruined by Mother Nature. So we're going to use some dielectric grease, which you can get here at each trailer if you need some, and we're going to put a generous amount on the back side of our connector here. This is going to help seal out dirt, debris, and moisture keeping out corrosion that we don't want present, so we don't have to come back in here unless we're going to be adding some accessories or doing something that we want to do on our terms. We can then slide our protector, dust boot there, right over all of that. And then I like to use some electrical tape on each ends of that to help keep that dust boot in place and further seal in that dielectric grease. We're going to do this on both sides of our dust boot, and then we can get it mounted up. Also in your kit, you will receive a little bit of wire loom here. We're going to be placing just a little bit here on the back side before we get that mounted as well. That's just going to help with the cleanliness and the look of our install. So we're just going to use a small section there. Slide that into place, and we'll use a little bit more of electrical tape there to keep that in place as well. We can then just take our connector, insert it into position, use the self-tapping screws that came provided with our base plate, and get those mounted up. We are using a Roadmaster base plate today, and it's provided us with this nice mounting location and hardware. Some other manufacturers may not provide you with this location. If that's the case, you'll have to make your own bracket. We've got no drill brackets here at eTrailer that you can purchase to give you a way to get this mounted up. So now that we've got all of our diodes fully installed with our connector in place and everything, we can go ahead and plug it into our motorhome and make sure it's working. I'm going to use my test box here, but at home you can go ahead and just use your motorhome. You want to make sure that you have your left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps. And if all of your lighting signals are working properly, you're ready to place your vehicle into flat tow, hook up to your motorhome, and hit the road. And that completes our look at Roadmaster's diode wiring kit on our 2021 Chevrolet Trailblazer.